Last month, my podcast downloads went up 69%. And if I was a bro marketer on LinkedIn, I would totally be like, it's because I stayed consistent and posted more content and never missed a day. But in reality, I published less. I recently switched from a weekly podcast to a bi-weekly podcast, and it worked even better. I'm not showing up on Instagram or anywhere else promoting my podcast all the time. I'm doing less work overall. So why the hell did my downloads go up so much? It's because my content was intentional. I'm not going to gatekeep, but here's the intro and I'm going to explain why. Welcome to Mompreneur Mastery. I'm your host, Sydney O'Brien, an Instagram strategist turned content and messaging strategist after watching the online space get louder, buyers take longer, and content turn into a performance instead of real connection. On this podcast, you'll learn how to clarify your message so your content actually stands out in a sea of copy and paste trends and AI noise, and also how to strategize your content across platforms to build the trust and connection that turns followers into clients. All in doable, brain space saving episodes you can fit in between school pickup and reheating your coffee for the third time. Let's dive in. Most people I talk to right now are feeling like they are putting so much time and energy into creating content for their businesses, for their podcasts, for their lead magnets, for their offers, all the things, right? So much time, so much effort, and they're not getting much back from it. And that sucks. That's super shitty. I never ever want that for myself, for you, for anyone. That feels awful. I very much relate it to when your kids ask for a super specific dinner and then you make it and then they're like, actually, I don't like this anymore. I'm going to refuse to eat it. It's so frustrating, especially when you just do not have the time to waste on shit that doesn't work, right? So what if, now hear me out, what if instead of doing more, we did less, but spent a touch more time planning it so it hits harder and aligns with our sales goals and with our marketing plans and with our audiences? It makes a big difference. A 69% jump is not nothing. It happened during a month where I decided I could not keep up with the pace that I had set, right? I have been doing this podcast for 2 or 3 years now. This is episode 128. So it's been a minute. And up until recently, I was doing it every single week. I didn't take breaks for summer vacation. I didn't take breaks for anything. I just planned ahead, powered through, pushed through to keep that consistency. And I honestly thought since my kids all started public school this year, I would have so much more time. But in reality, my kids all have various support needs that require extra medical care. So 4 to 5 mornings a week, I am still bringing them to appointments, and we live in the DMV area. So the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, and traffic is nuts. So going anywhere takes really long. It's quite the time suck to do. So I do not, in fact, have a ton of time to get a lot of business stuff done. I can't do all the things all the time as much as I wish I could. I don't have the time to do it. So I switched to bi-weekly episodes instead of weekly. And part of me had this minute of there goes my visibility since Instagram isn't good for visibility anymore. And bundles and summits are cool, but you're kind of competing with so many different people. It's really hard to make that connection that you get from a podcast, but it didn't really work out that way. Like I said, I had that 69% jump in downloads in just a month, which was kind of crazy because when I did take a step back and step away, what I really needed to share now that I'm not sharing as often, I got to really hone in on my messaging and my positioning and what needed to be said, what I need my audience to understand about me, about my work, and how that leads to the specific offers I want to promote. And being able to take that step back and kind of relieve that stress and that pressure allowed me to be much more intentional with my podcast content. And I'm doing the same thing on Instagram right now, which I feel is really important. Knowing the algorithm has changed, knowing buyer behavior has changed, knowing it's not doing the things it used to do for business owners, even though we're putting in the same amount of effort and stuff, we have to switch up our strategies to make it the same useful tool that it was before. And even then, the way it performs for us, the way it helps our businesses is going to be different. If you're wondering what that looks like, wait until the end of the episode. I will explain. Now, this is kind of like a personal aside, but I started a Bookstagram account. So like very unrelated to anything else, but I did. And with a measly like 20 posts, maybe like 21 posts, I quickly gained 460 something followers in a month. And that kind of just reinforced this belief that I already had of it's not how often you post, it's knowing your audience and it's not playing to the algorithm. It's knowing what your audience both wants and needs to hear. So while the Bookstagram account, it's not a business, it's still on Instagram and you're kind of playing to the platform, but also playing to your audience specifically. So it's never about posting more. It's never about necessarily hopping on trends. It's not just, post good content, post regularly, cross our fingers and our toes and hope that it works. And sometimes it does. But we also need to make sure that our content is cohesive, where we're showing up like specific to my business content, my podcast, my emails, my Instagram posts, they're all in alignment with this bigger overarching buyer journey that I have planned out ahead of time, right? So even if I don't have a specific post planned for any day, I can think about what stage of the buyer journey I'm at, what objections I'm talking about, what pain points I'm talking about, what transformations I'm talking about, any of that, and quickly create content about it, even if I haven't, bashed a whole bunch of content ahead of time. And even that saves me time and saves me a bunch of time, stress, and a bunch of brain space. And also knowing which platform should be doing which thing, because your content works a lot better when each individual specific piece is not trying to do everything at once. Your podcast has a job. Your Instagram has a job. Your email has a job. Your website has a job. They're all different, but they're all working together to work towards that same end result of like more clients or more sales for your business, right? But when you're trying to make all of the different platforms do all of the different things, it is so much more stressful and so much more time consuming. And that's why specifically on Instagram, because that's where I spend most of my time and where I coach most people, it's where you feel like you have to post constantly, where you have to say the perfect thing, where you have to use the perfect hook, where you have to find the perfect audio, where you have to stay visible, where you have to post 3 to 5 stories a day, or it's just not going to work. And it's so exhausting. You have a million other way more important things to do in your life, in your business, for your family, especially if you're not a full-time content creator. Most of the people that I work with aren't. And Instagram cannot do everything anymore. So much about Instagram has changed. It's silly to pretend that it can carry your whole sales funnel anymore. It doesn't. That's not what it's for. There was a time where it could do most all of it, and it was super awesome. It could find the people, it could warm them up, you could build the trust, you could sell, you could get the clients. Now it's definitely different, not unless you have a bunch of time to waste on the app, sharing content, showing up in stories, doing outbound engagement, spending times in DMs. And I do think if you are going to spend time on Instagram, it should be in comment sections and DMs. Expecting it to do all of the stages of your sales process is just silly at this point. It's unrealistic and it's a waste of your time, and you do not have that time to waste, okay? So for busy service writers, freelancers, solopreneurs, we don't have time to make content all day, every day. We don't have time to make content every day at all, right? We have clients, we have kids, we have houses to manage, schedules to manage, brains that get overstimulated, and, 47 tabs open at all times, both on our laptops and in our brains. So when we spend our time on marketing, we need it to actually move our business forward, not just keep us visible, not just have, a post and a feed. So when I say that my podcast had a 69% increase in downloads in a month, it's because my content started working harder. It became more intentional, more directional, and it was because I took that step back. So I am really encouraging you, if you feel like you're spending way too much time on your marketing, to do less. Instead of spending more time creating content, spend a touch more time planning it, and then post less, share less wherever you're sharing. Just make it a little more intentional when you do share. And if that's something you want to learn more about, I am soon going to be running a private 3-day podcast challenge called From Dreading It to Getting It, where I'm going to work with you to figure out what Instagram should be doing in your business now that, buyer behavior has changed and Instagram marketing has changed, and how to create content that supports that goal so that Instagram is actually working for your business and you're not trying to do all the things with it when it is not made for that anymore, and save you a whole bunch of time and effort when it comes to content marketing. If you are interested in joining, it's going to start mid-April. And I will put the link in the show notes where you can join the waitlist to get more information. Until then, think about how you can spend less time on your content, take a step back, and focus a bit more on being intentional than staying visible on Instagram. Thank you so much for being here and for listening to me yap on Mompreneur Mastery. If planning your content and strategizing it still feels harder than it should, check out the Content Chaos Reset. You give a little bit of information about your business and your offer, and it'll plan 2 weeks of content for you, posts, emails, blogs, or podcasts that all support each other so you have a cohesive marketing plan. It's free and it's linked in the show notes, or you can head to sydneyobrien.com/reset, RESET.